And so I was trying to find somebody to go to Congo. That was actually the plan. And we have an international director, and it wasn't working out. And then I said, okay, I'll go. And that was a great experience. It was just a really enjoyable time. So I'm going to share with you about that experience, and we'll maybe open up if you have questions. I don't see Sparky in here, so there may be things in here that aren't correct. So he's not here to correct me in what I have to say. All right, so do I start clicking, Titus? Is that how this works? Oops, turn it on. There we are. TSOH to the DRC. What in the world does that mean? We're ABWE missionaries, and everything is about acronyms. When we first came, there was like a page and a half single-space acronyms, and we have not memorized all those. But what does TSOH stand for? The Story of Hope. And the Story of Hope, oh, Glorianne's got one there, and looks like this. Many of you have probably seen this before, but the Story of Hope is a chronological Bible study. Starts with creation, works its way through to help people understand the big picture of what the Bible is all about. It's a discovery Bible study, so it's a great tool to use with your unbelieving friend, just to help them over time to understand who God is and who His Son Jesus Christ is. And we love this as it's a great tool helping people build their biography of who God is. And there are 40 events, so just giving you, we'll talk about it a little bit later, 20 Old Testament and 20 New Testament that help tell that story. The DRC stands for Republic of Congo. All right. And so here's our story. So my fellow missionary friend Steve Wingett and I left from Dulles Airport, and this was on 10/26, so a year and a little bit ago. And this is, so Steve was in Hungary for a number of years, over 20 years in Hungary, and he's now in the home office. His office is right next to my office. And actually, this is a work of grace, this picture here. Steve is from Tennessee, and he's a Tennessee Volunteer fan. And if you see my shirt, it's a Michigan shirt. So to have a Tennessee guy putting his arm around a Michigan guy, this definitely has to be a work of God's grace to have that happen. I don't know if you can see it, but right behind us, it's got like black and yellow lids. If you see that right behind, we have 4 of those bins. And inside those bins, we had 500 Story of Hope French that we were taking that were contributed from here. And then we have 8 sets of the big story cards. They're the big cards like this. Like in the Story of Hope, there's a little tiny picture, but we had 8 sets that we brought with us, and then 3 sets of the Chrono Bridge. And the Chrono Bridge are 8 key words that describe the big picture of the Bible: God, man, sin, death, Christ, cross, faith, life. And we had that translated into French. Glorianne, not that she knows French, but she knows how to put French onto a card. And so we took that there for them. So as you know, the DRC was formerly Zaire, and from 1971 to 1997, this was like information I was learning. Not that I am a missionary to Congo. I was there for one time, but I appreciated learning the different things that I did. It's the 2nd largest country in Africa, 11th largest country in the world. Oops. And as we flew into Kinshasa, actually we flew into, you can see it here. I know it's probably hard to see. We flew into Brazzaville, which was really interesting. Flying from Paris to Brazzaville, we had to stay on the plane. For those of you that have ever gone, I know a few of you have gone, we had to stay there for like 2 hours on the plane while they're cleaning it. And then after that was done, then we took off, and I think we landed in 5 minutes into Kinshasa. So it's like we have this long wait to get there. But in 2023, it says there were 103 million people in the DRC, and the capital, Kinshasa, has 17 to 20 million, which I thought was so weird that you didn't know exactly, but as we found out, there's like little villages everywhere, and they just don't know exactly how many people are there. It's one of the poorest countries in the world. 60 million people live on less than $2.15 a day. It's just staggering to even think about that, how people live. But we were going to, let's see where that's at. We were going, as you know, to Dubai Lubwe, where the training was, and that doesn't look like very far, but actually it did take a bit of time to get there, and we'll talk about that trip as well. French is the national language because those in Belgium colonized it. There are 3 tribal languages, or there's many tribal languages, but there were 3 main languages that we were to work with. I love pictures like this to kind of give an idea how big Congo is in comparison to the United States, about a fourth of the size. Congo is very beautiful. I mean, as we came in and got a few of the shots there, obviously it was rainy season, so everything is nice and green, and it's just kind of a cool part of the country. It's rich in natural resources, cobalt, copper, rainforest, gold, diamonds. Unfortunately, from as I understand, China is the one benefiting from all of that and not the Congolese. And unfortunately, I think as Sparky has talked about, the Congolese could figure out how to, as it were, harvest their own. They would not be the poorest country in the world. But the Chinese are benefiting from their great benefits. This picture here is Sparky and Mindy's backyard, and it is beautiful. You think you're in Hawaii. I think these are native trees, not like probably in other parts of the country. But there's also some very primitive parts of Congo. So when I think of this, what comes to mind is Gilligan's Island. For those of you that are old enough to know about the show or have watched the reruns. So this is the bathroom, outdoor bathroom. This was at one of the places, I can't remember the town that we were at. This was actually on our way back. But what I understood is that when you were going to go use the facilities, you had to clap. And if somebody was in there, they would clap back. If somebody was not in there, they would not clap back. So it was a way, at least, to let you know if you were free to go in. And it's just a hole in the ground. And I have been trying to encourage Glorianne to come with me. When I show pictures like this doesn't help. This is the outdoor shower. So I did use the bathroom. This is the outdoor shower, and you're just supposed to go in and they dump water on your head. I did not use this one. And this, again, would not appeal to Glorianne either. But within Congo, and this is Kinshasa, there are some very ugly parts of the city. It's extreme amount of poverty. There's hundreds of these kinds of villages like this. Found out there is no garbage collection. From what I understand, they used to collect garbage, and then they had garbage cans all over, and then people stole the garbage cans, and so then they chained the garbage cans, and then the garbage just overflowed. So they said, oh, forget it. And so instead, it's just like this. And then there is no sewer system. So then you got sewage, and you got garbage. So this is, obviously you could tell, where you could have lots of sickness and things going on. Oops, let's back up. This is one of the pastors at the Kinshasa church, and his family lives in that village. And and maybe you have seen this, these are sandbags that are by his house because when it floods, all that stuff ends up going into his house. And I guess his house is sinking, so then you got other issues that are going on. But what I love about the picture, he's got a smile on his face, just loving serving the Lord. Maybe some of us would be like, oh, this is not going to work for me, or I'm going to be complaining and all that stuff. Just appreciated his heart that he just said, you know what, I love the Lord, I love serving God's people, and that's what God has called him to do. My friend Steve preached at the church there in Kinshasa on the first Sunday, and then this was the Wednesday before we left. And this is missionary Dan Grings, as you know, who has served in Congo for over 40 years. I got to speak at the Funa Church in Kinshasa, and it was just very interesting. You know, we drove to this, we were in the city, we drove, and then we turned one way and then turned another way, and then we finally couldn't go any farther, just parked the car and walked the rest of the way to get to this particular church. And I guess there's just hundreds of churches in the city. And as I spoke, Sparky translated for me. And then when we got to Dubai, Lubwe, I spoke at this church, and I love the name of the church, Beautiful Feet Baptist Church, as Romans 10:15. How beautiful are the feet of those who preach the gospel of peace, who bring glad tidings of good things. So I preached, and Pastor Palisha, maybe you've heard that name, he translated for me. I love him. He's such a great brother, and he was a great servant during our time there. And my friend Steve preached after I did, and there was a rainstorm that came right in the middle of it, and got the metal roof. Well, you know, with rain and metal roof, we stopped. It was like halftime type of thing, if you could think about that. We stopped, rain stopped, got back up, kept on going. And what I love about this story is when Sparky went, they thought, okay, he's the rich American coming. And you're going to help us out, and we need to build a building, so how are you going to help us, Sparky? And he says, that's not why I came here. You know, came here to train you, to disciple you. And so I'm not going to help you with any funds. And so he said, what would you guys do to helping build your building? Well, we would canoe across this spot, and we would gather some things and then bring it back. And he said, okay, let's go do that. And so they went, and they started that way, and they saved their money, and I think it took them 7 years, and they built their own building. This is their building, which to me was a great lesson, a great missions lesson to learn, because if you do stuff for people, you take away their dignity. And these people could do things for themselves. Now, it may not pass OSHA here, but it's their building. And that was a great lesson for me to learn, that helping God's people by letting them do it themselves. And I think that was very, very cool. This was in the market, and so Steve and I and Sparky and Mindy and Walker, we went through the market. We are the novelty because we are the white people, and they all wanted to come around us and touch us. What does a white person feel like? And so as we were walking through, Sparky wanted to compare to the different shops there to United States stores. So we maybe compared this to Walmart with all the candy that's there. This would be the Croc store, if you're familiar with that. Behind me here are a bunch of transistor radios, so this is a precursor to Best Buy. And great clothing, unbelievable clothing here. In Congo, finding this Michigan shirt. As I walked by, it was right there. And my friend Steve said, you know, his comment was, well, nobody wanted it. That's how it got to Congo. My response is, this was the last one left. So just think about that for a moment. I love the modes of transportation. Lots of walking, seeing people carrying a variety of things, of getting around. We went on a little canoe ride, but that is a form of transportation. That's one big log that was hollowed out, and we were actually going to that little island together. Motorcycle travel. Dan Gring says, hey, how do you guys want to travel to get to this one location that we were going to go? You want to go by vehicle, or do you want to go by motorcycle? Steve was right away, vehicle. He had been in some other countries and Philippines and other things like that, and it was like he didn't want to put his life in his own hands. But Dan won out, and we went by motorcycle. It was either going to be an hour by vehicle, or it's going to be 15 minutes by motorcycle. And for those of you that are are there. The reason why it's 15 minutes because there is no right or wrong side of the road. You go wherever you can go. And there are very little stop signs, too. So it's just kind of a free-for-all in any intersection. And I felt like my life was flashing before my eyes. Now, you think 3 people on a motorcycle? We actually came across where there was 6 people on one motorcycle. It was the whole family. And we saw other times there was a pig on the back, and it was just very crazy. They do enjoy their motorcycles. And this was very funny to me. This is as we were going out of Kinshasa, and all these guys up on the top there, obviously no seatbelts, and as they are traveling along. So as we said, we came into Kinshasa, and then we were traveling to Dubai-Lubwe for the training. So we got up really early in the morning in our Toyota Land Cruiser. I came to really love this vehicle. And from left to right, is that right? From left to right for you? Pepe on the left, and our driver and part of the board there, Pastor Palisha, then Walker, and Mindy and Sparky, and then Steve, and then myself. And we left 4:30, had 3 stops, and then we arrived at the orphanage where we stayed the night about 7 p.m. So it was a long day. As the roads are, once you get out of Kinshasa, this is the main highway, and this is a 2-lane road. And you say, how is that a 2-lane road? Well, you kind of have to, if somebody's coming, you kind of pull over as far as you can. Now, there's like a little, right here, come to find out, what is this over here? Well, this is a walking path. If there's rain, you need somebody to kind of walk ahead, and a lot of times Pepe would have to do that when we hit where there was a lot of water, to kind of walk ahead to figure out, okay, do you go to the left or to the right? On our second day, we left about 7:15 in the morning, about 7:40, so 25 minutes down the road. All of a sudden, these guys are waving us down, stop, stop. And so we stopped and trying to figure out, okay, what's going on. If you notice that big chasm there, I guess every time it rains, the road changes. So this is the effect of the rain. But they stopped us, and so we kept walking to find out what was going on. And so the front truck had a flat tire, and the guys were gone. They can't call AAA to come in and fix it, so they got to fix it. And these guys are geniuses. And the guys behind are trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to get around this guy? How are we going to navigate this so we don't fall into that ditch? And so they're figuring it out. They got shovels. I came to have a great appreciation for the Congolese, as they're very ingenious in how they're navigating things. So we watched them go through that whole process and getting past and not falling down and made their way, and we were able to make our way. But it was a very fascinating thing just watching how that all takes place. But the roads, we saw all different kinds of things. It could be quicksand, could be mud, could be very hard kind of concrete type of thing. And so that Land Cruiser that we were in was amazing. I felt like I was on a commercial for Toyota. They probably would have appreciated that. So on one of the days, I can't remember which day it was, we're like right in the middle of the jungle on the road, and he says, okay, we're stopping for lunch. And okay, there's no restaurants. I guess yesterday was fast food day. I don't know if you knew that. So we stopped, and we're going to have hot dogs. Hot dogs. And so he pulled open the engine, and he had put cans of these hot dogs by the motor, and so they're called motor dogs. And so we had them, and actually they were pretty good. And ketchup, mustard, all that fun stuff. So we finally got to Dubai-Lubwe, and this is Sparky and Mindy's house there. To the right of the house is a water tower, which they did not have. When they first moved there, there was no water tower, so they had to collect water just by, I guess, from what I understand, again, I can be corrected, it started raining, they'd go outside and try to gather the rain. But now they have the water tower, and they have a generator, which they which they use to help, which they didn't have before. So the water tower helps to give pressure for toilets and showers and sinks. So I didn't feel like I was really roughing it bad. I felt like I was just living out in the country. But from what I understand, when they first went there as a family, it was roughing it and got sick many, many times. And so I was enjoying the benefits of the things that they had put in, but it was a lot more difficult. But we came to train these professors, there's 6 professors, how to use the story of hope as a way to sharing the gospel. Again, the story of hope is a narrative gospel presentation. There are 3 different ways in which you could share the gospel. You can share it experientially, which is your faith story, your testimony, and how you came to personally trust Christ. You can share it propositionally, where you have like truths like bad news. Here's the bad news, and here's the good news. And you can share it narratively, how, as you're talking about key Bible events that share God's story. And so we were introducing this tool called the Story of Hope as a tool to helping these men to share the gospel. We then used at the back end of the Story of Hope, which is called the Chrono Bridge, which I made reference to, and these 8 key words in going from spiritual death to eternal life and helping them walk through. So this is another propositional approach to sharing the gospel. And the purpose of this Chrono Bridge is to help to clarify, what does a person understand and what do they not understand after going through the Story of Hope, and to personalize it and to persuade them to trust in Christ. So the first week, Steve and I spent time with the 6 professors. Sparky and Mindy, as you know, were there for 8 years and had developed key leaders through a Bible Institute. And so our approach with them, we shared our testimonies, how we trusted Christ. We got to hear from all of these leaders, and then we talked about the parable of the soils, because that's kind of good soil is about the parable of the soils. We shared about the gospel. We just wanted to clarify. We want to make sure we're understanding from 1 Corinthians 15. Why should we share the gospel? From 2 Corinthians 5. And then just introduce to them the story of hope and how they could use this. We showed them how to guide a lesson, and we modeled for them. And Steve and I led how they could do that. And we gave them multiple times to do that. Now, the very first time that they shared it with each other, they were lecturing each other. So they would study the lesson, and as they were doing it with somebody, they would say, "You believe this, right? You believe this, right? You believe this." And we said, no, that's not how you got to do this. This is a discovery, so you need to ask them questions and let them answer. And they said, "Oh, I get it." So then they did it again, because we gave them multiple times so they could get the idea. And then as they were doing it, they started clapping. And I asked Sparky, I said, "What are they doing?" "Well, they're asking each other questions, and when they get it right, they clap for each other." So everybody's clapping for each other, and they're smiling. And as they clap, it's like the smile came up, just like you did. You smiled, and they started. So it was so fun to just watch them as they were getting adjusted to that whole idea of how we were doing the lesson. It was so fun watching them as they're digging in and studying together. And our goal was, how could we help them to understand this is a discovery. You want your unbelieving friend to discover these truths for themselves, not just because I told you, but because they saw it for themselves in the Scriptures. So that was the first week. The second week, we then went to the new training. This is another building that they put together, the training. This was the very first time they got to use it. So we got, as it were, we were the inaugural training that took place. So it's all dirt floor, and it looks like windows, but they're not really windows. They're just holes there in the concrete wall. And so it was really, really neat. So we did the same kind of format, and the professors helped us in assisting. They had about 50 every day that came, and the professors would walk around as they were then guiding the lessons. We taught them how to guide lessons. Actually, the people were really, we would get feedback from them because we told them, you got to guide the lesson. You don't know teaching. And so then we would ask feedback. How did that go? Well, then these people were very blunt. And they said, this person, he kept on talking all the time. He never let me answer any questions. And so it was like, I think in our culture, we'd be like, whoa, back away. And but they were very blunt with each other. But they got the idea. So we got to do it multiple times. At the end of the second day, and this is one of the professors there as he's helping to answer some questions. At the second day, Steve suggested, and it was a great idea, that we were going to leave as the, we're letting the people kind of work through, study a lesson, and then they would guide each other through that lesson, and then do a debrief. At the end of the second day, Steve and I said, we're going to leave. And what's going to happen is the professors are going to lead the debrief. And our thought was, we're going to leave. We're only here for a short time, but the professors are going to be there. So what we are wanting to do is to transfer so that all the people that are there to understand that it's these professors are the ones you can follow. You don't have to follow the white missionaries that are coming. And we found out the next day the professors did a fabulous job in leading it. I think that was a great experience. Overall, they had 50 each day, but overall 84 in attendance. And it was very fun. I have lots of different videos, but I'm not showing any of those. But they had 3 different languages, Kikongo, Lingala, Chaluba, and they did the chrono bridge, and they would do it in their own language. And that was so fun to just hear those words in their own language. Now, this is an added slide. So you are the first ones. I've shared this story multiple times, but you're the first one to hear this. So in September, so just a couple of months ago, Papa Galore was getting ready to teach the kids Sunday school in Dubai Lubwe. Now, what's significant about that is that his pastor went through the training that we did a year ago. And he then taught all the church leaders how to use the story of hope. So now Papa Galore is now one of the deacons, and he is now teaching the kids. So that for us is kind of a neat story because we want to not only do disciples, but to make disciple makers. And that is a very cool story. And so we'd love to hear that that they didn't just do the training, but they're actually using it. So, when we went on this trip, sometimes you have what's called unexpected ministry. And I told Sparky I'd like to go running while I'm there. I like to run, not like my son who runs marathons, but I like to run to get out and get some exercise. So this is an abandoned runway. And so this is like out from their house, kind of back behind their house. And so I would go running. And as I went running, the little guy came and joined with me running. And as I kept running, more joined with me in my running. And as they would run, they were like, I'm not running super fast. They're running, they're doing flips, they're doing, all kinds of stuff. But I became very burdened for them as, it's like, these kids, do they know Jesus? And so on my Bible app, YouVersion Bible app, there's different languages. So I pulled out, and I don't know if they understood French or not, but I pulled out French, John 3:16, and I tried the best I could to read John 3:16 to them. And each day, I would do that. And as it kept going, more and more kids came. Well, coming the last day, before we were going to get ready to leave, I asked Pastor Palisha if he would explain the gospel to them. And I would teach using the chrono bridge. And so Steve is holding these cards. And so we have picture cards for each one of those words: God, man, sin, death, those 8 words. And so as I was talking about them, Steve would hold up the picture. Well, that last day that we did it, there must have been 100 kids that were there running with me. Every day that I was running, I kept running less and less miles for whatever reason. all the kids were around. But it's so burdened. And so Pastor Palisha, he shared the gospel with them, made a gospel appeal to them. And I'm not sure where they're at, but it burdened me. And when I came back to share with Mindy, Mindy said, there are hundreds of these villages all over Congo. And every time we would stop at a place, the kids would come running. And these little guys have souls. Going to spend eternity either in heaven or in hell. And the burden that God gave me. So it was a ministry that I wasn't expecting to get, but it was a great ministry. Well, our 3 weeks time did have to eventually come to an end. And November 17th, we are headed back. We're at the Kinshasa airport, and Steve and I would be flying to Paris while Sparky, Mindy, and Walker would be going through Belgium. And so we had to separate our ways. But as we have shared, and you are a part of this, because we came here to share with you that we were going to Congo. So it is fun for us to be able to share with you after the trip. And so as we have shared with others, that we thank God for you, as you were part of that trip for us, as you support Sparky and Mindy, as you came and gave an offering to us as we were there. And we say, for your fellowship in the gospel. That word fellowship is koinonia in the Greek, which means a commitment to a shared vision. And I appreciate your commitment to the shared vision to see that Sparky and Mindy are able to go and that we were able to go. And Apostle Paul, as he was telling the Philippian church, thank you for your partnership in the gospel. As they supported him financially, but they prayed for him. But he says, not that I seek, this is at the end of chapter 4, he says, not that I seek the gift, but I seek the fruit that abounds to your account. What does that mean? The Apostle Paul thanked the Philippian church because what was happening is that where Paul went and the gospel was preached and people trusted Christ and that churches were planted and leaders were developed, that this Philippian church was a part of that because of their partnership, their financial giving, their prayer giving. So if I could say it, I want to thank you for your partnership with us. Because as a result of us going, the leaders were given a new tool to share the gospel. They were shown how to use that tool. They had multiple opportunities to practice that tool. They were excited because when they were going back to their villages where they live, they were going to be sharing the gospel with their families, their churches, and the lost people. The gospel was shared with those children. And the professors were going to be traveling, as I understood, they were going to be traveling by motorcycle or by foot to lots of other places to use the story of hope. And Lord willing, the gospel is spreading all over Congo. Our theme verse is 2 Thessalonians 3:1, where the Apostle Paul said, finally, brethren, pray for us, that the word of the Lord may run swiftly and be glorified, just as it is with you. And that is our prayer, that it would spread there in Congo. But you are a part of that ministry. For Sparky and Mindy, but also for us. And so I would just wanted to thank you for that. And allowing your shepherd to continue to go and to train leaders and to see that the gospel spreads. And for allowing us to share. As you know about that ministry, this allows us to be able to share it from our perspective as well. So, may I open it up if anybody has any questions for me? Yes?
Are some of the motorcycles diesel?
Are the motorcycles diesel? I don't know how those motorcycles run. I know they're not run by electric because we live in Pennsylvania. We're in York, near York, Pennsylvania. I don't know if you knew this. This is new information for us. Harley-Davidson is one assembly plant. Is that right? Am I saying that right? There's one assembly plant for Harley-Davidson. They tried to do electric motorcycles. It did not go over. Nobody wanted to buy them because people want gas. So, the answer to your question, I don't know what kind of fuel it was, but it's not electric. That's what I do know for sure. Anybody else with a question? Yes.
The story of hope. What other languages do you have them?
Oh, okay. So the question was about Story of Hope. What other languages? So it's in over 40 different languages being used all over the world. Gloria Ann gets to work with that. She doesn't know all these languages, but we have teams of people, missionaries that are in different parts of the world, and they will work together to translate it. And so what are some of the latest ones that have been translated?
Arabic, Japanese, Turkish, Italian. Those are probably the top this year that have gotten translated. And there's more that are coming. So.
Yeah, so if you didn't hear, there's 40 different ones, Turkish, Italian, Japanese, Arabic, and each one of those has some unique challenges, of how they're written. And but it's being used, and so the gospel gets to go forth. Not just ABWE missionaries, but other missionaries that are wanting to use that. And so those, when they get to come and visit at the home office, they're like our heroes, as they get to see the gospel spread there. So, yes?
Have you gone on other mission trips where you've had opportunity to present that as well? Or
I have, so the question was, have I gone to any other places? I'm the North American director for Good Soil, so I do mostly in the U.S. We do have an international director that goes, and he was he's in Brazil right now.
Yeah, but Gil was in Italy, Cambodia, and Thailand just recently.
So we have others that are making a trip. They would like us to take at least one international trip. I do like probably my connection with Sparky. I do like the Congo opportunity and love the chance to go back again. So there's talk about that because they're thinking about opening up another area that we might go in to share. And I think in that setting, they're not sure if even these pastors are even believers. So we might think about that even a little bit differently, using the story of hope more evangelistically for them to see them trust Christ. But it is a good perspective to be able to go outside of our country and then to see how the rest, or as a different part of the world, lives. So I'd like to. I don't know how many I can do. Like Randy does 3 or 4 a year. That's quite taxing on you to go to different countries, but it's a good question. Anybody else? Yes, in the back.
What other religions compete against the gospel there in ER?
What other religions? I know there's a lot of prosperity gospel that goes on, and obviously you could tell that would be very much an appeal to them. How could they get themselves out of poverty? I think it only helps those who are wealthy to become more wealthy, and separating there. So then it's light on the word and more on the and heavy on the experience. I know that's a big part. Probably somebody else that might know. I mean, I might open it up here.
Muslims, there's a lot of different cults.
Yeah, I did hear that about cults. Yeah, Sparky said Muslims are not probably as strong where we were, but I think there are some parts where it is even stronger. But the cults have made it, and spreading false gospels. And so the importance of being there and bringing God's truth is really important. Anyone else with a question? Hey, thanks for letting us be here. It's a great blessing to be here and to share about the story and about what God is doing. We do have a table in the back. Gloria, you want to say anything about the table? No. She does not want to say anything about the table. So you can come by and chat with us, and we'd love to be able to interact with you and just sharing what God is doing. So I'm not sure, when do we start? At 11? Is that right? So I guess we got a little bit of time in between, so we can fellowship and chat together for a little bit and come by a table if you want. So let me pray with you, and then we'll be dismissed. Father God, thanks for our time together. Thank you, God, for the good work in which you are doing in the DRC. Thank you even for those who are taking the gospel and sharing it with others. And I pray that you would allow your gospel to continue to spread and continue to use that. And so thank you for our time this morning, and may you be honored and glorified in the upcoming service. In Jesus' name, amen. I wonder, should we do anything with we've got like a half an hour.